Hey Tara, good Thursday morning to you. Very sorry about yesterday and the video not working. Um, Hopefully this will be working well today. We are going to be reviewing Tara. It'll be average to really boring. Just a lot of notes, a lot of listening. So please listen well. We're going to review today and Friday and Monday and Tuesday. Your exam is Wednesday, I believe. And maybe it's not Wednesday, but I know for sure we have 4 days to review. I know that for sure. Not knowing when the exam is, although Mr. Harmon sent the schedule out a long time ago, but I forget. I cannot tell you if I'll be there or not for the test, but I will do the best I can to be there for the exam. Now what we're going to do, Tara, is we're going to have to try to cover 6 chapters. 5 through 10, and we're going to hit the main things that you need to know, okay? And so first of all, I'd like you to grab your book, please. You don't owe me anything, obviously. You're all caught up. You were the only person that got 100 on that trigonometry test, so really good job. I was so proud of you, and I could tell you were excited too, so good job on that, and it shows you what studying does. It's good. It's a good job, and very pleased. Please turn to page 292. Tara, if you'll look up at the screen here, I'll write that for you. Page 292. We're going to start off, first of all, there's not a lot from chapter 5 that we're going to go over, except it's very important that one of the fundamentals from geometry, that you need to know are the ways to prove triangles congruent. Okay? And why don't you write these down? We learn side, angle, side. We learn side, side, side. We learn angle, angle, side. And angle, side, angle. Okay? And now we're going to practice these for a couple minutes. That's why I've asked you to turn to page 292. You need to be familiar. I can see me on the test actually saying to you, list out the 4 ways that we've learned to prove that triangles are congruent. Okay? And so that would definitely be a fair question. So know these. Side, angle, side, 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 angle, side, angle, angles, angle, angle, side, angle, side, angle. Side, side, angle is not one that does not work. And angle, angle, angle does not work. No way. I could draw a 60, 60, 60 triangle that looks like that, and then a 60, 60 triangle that looks like that, and they're not congruent at all. So these are the ways right here, these 4 ways, these are the ways that we've learned to prove that triangles are congruent. I want you to take some notes now. And again, I told you, I'm not sure if I'll teach the whole 50 minutes or not. There's no one in class there for you to goof off with or anything. And if you get some extra time to work on other classes, that's fine. It's really hard to not be there. Usually I have the whole review drawn up, Tara, for my classes, and I go as far as I can every class period. And then the very last day of school, if we have some extra time, that's fine. But it's hard to do that when you're doing a video and to time yourself, because sometimes I pause the video and sometimes I don't. So we'll go until I feel like that's sufficient, and you might have free time at the end of the hour, you might not. Please look at number 12, would you please? Please take a look at number 12. Now, obviously you don't have to write this in your notes. You can just look at your book. But that's kind of what you see there in your book. Now, notice we have a mark here, and 2 marks here. And then we have 2 marks here, a mark here, and a mark here. Now, we have a side, and then an angle, and then a side, congruent to a side, and then an angle, and then a side. So because of that, on the test or quiz, or excuse me, on the exam, I'll say, are these 2 triangles congruent? You'll say yes or no, and then you'll tell me why. Well, in this case, you would say yes, they're congruent. By what reason? By side, angle, side. You have a side, angle, side of one triangle congruent to a side, angle, side of another triangle. Now, rest assured on the test, I'm going to give you some problems in which the triangles are not congruent. Okay? So you're going to have to think on these. All right? Okay, let's very quickly continue on. Take a look, please, at number 13 in your book, if you would, real quick. Number 13. Okay, number 13 looks like this. Let's see, straight across, over. Okay, something like that. And again, you can look in your book and see this. And we have 2 marks here, 2 marks here, a mark here, and a mark here. Now, please watch carefully. Could you state that triangle number 1 right here is congruent to triangle number 2? Well, please don't forget something, Tara. Don't forget that when 2 lines intersect, their vertical angles are congruent. And so when these 2 lines, you could also say this angle here is congruent to this angle here. So when these 2 lines, this line here and this line here, when they intersect like that, we know that this angle here is congruent to this angle here. So once again, we have side, angle, side, congruent to side, angle, side of another triangle. So yes, you could say triangle 1 is congruent to triangle 2 by side, angle, side. Definitely. All right. Okay, let's continue on and take a look at number 14. That was number 13. Number 14. Now, it's kind of funny. In the book, I'm 99.9% sure they made a mistake. They forgot to draw a line right down the middle, so it's kind of funny. But there really should be a line like this. I'm pretty sure they forgot to do that. And now that we have that line, it makes a little more sense. We have a congruency mark here, congruency mark here, and we have 2 tick marks here and 2 tick marks here. All right, and Q, R, S, and P. All right, now again, I'm just going to very quickly, for time's sake, call this triangle 1 and triangle 2. That's pretty unorthodox, but we're going to do that. Is triangle 1 congruent to triangle 2? Well, look, do not the 2 triangles share a side? Sure they do. Excuse me. So, if these 2 triangles share a side, please watch this, Tara. I have a side, side. I'm going to put 3 marks here. I have a side, side, side of one triangle, congruent to side, side, side of another triangle. So yes, I can definitely state that triangle 1 is congruent to triangle 2, or you could say triangle QPR is congruent to triangle SPR by what reason? Side, side, side. Okay, so we're just practicing these over and over and over. All right, let's continue on. Okay, now moving on. Let's go ahead and take a look at this problem. Now, real quick here, Tara, I don't want to do an overkill, but look, here's 2 triangles side by side. Please notice we're going to call this triangle 1 and triangle 2. Please notice they share a side right here. So I have angle, angle, that's a 90-degree angle right there. Angle, angle, side, congruent to angle, angle, side. So yes, I can state these triangles are congruent. Yes, congruent by angle, angle, side. If I get too fast in this video, please pause it. I probably am, so please pause it. And then here's a quick example of a triangle that has angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle, congruent in both triangles. So you could state, yes, triangles are congruent by angle, side, angle. So one part of your exam is going to be using these 4 ways right here to prove that triangles are congruent. Okay? All right, another part of your exam is going to be, and I didn't mean to do that, hold on one second. There we go. Is going to be the characteristics of a parallelogram. All right? So let's take a second here and let's look at the 5 characteristics of a parallelogram. Now, before we get into that, please turn to page 343. Tara, please turn to page 343. 343. Now, what I need you to do, Tara, is, let me go ahead and delete this here. Go ahead and take a second, please, and I'll pause for a minute. If I go too fast, just pause the video. Go ahead and take a second and write down these 5 characteristics of a parallelogram. You'll need to know these and be familiar with these. Just getting a drink of water there, excuse me. So 5 characteristics of a parallelogram. Please write these down. And I've asked you to be on page 343, so please be over there. Page 343. Okay, I don't think you'll need to write a lot of this down, but please feel free to if you need to, okay? Please feel free to. And maybe you'll want to draw a parallelogram in your notes. That's totally up to you. I'm going to do a lot of erasing, okay? All right, number 1, opposite sides are congruent. Okay, so that means this side here, if we had a 5 here, then that means this side right over here would also be a 5. If this was a 12, then this side here would be a 12. Do you see that? Okay. Opposite sides are congruent. Okay. With that in mind, now let's go ahead and look at number 2. Opposite angles are congruent. If this was 120 degrees, then this would also be 120 degrees. If this is 60 degrees right here, then this would be 60 degrees. Do you see that? Opposite angles are going to be congruent. Okay, that's number 2. Opposite angles in a parallelogram are always congruent. Opposite sides are parallel. So this side here is parallel to that side, and this side here is parallel to this side. By the way, that's the definition of a parallelogram. A quadrilateral with both sets of opposite sides parallel. Okay, so the sides will be parallel. Number 4, consecutive angles are supplementary. That means if this is 110 degrees right here, then consecutive angle means the angle beside it right here, this angle, and the angle beside it here. They're supplementary. That means they add up to 180. So if this is 110, this has to be 70. And if that's 70, we know this has to be 70. Because opposite angles are congruent. If that's 110, then this has to be 110. Do you see how these two add up to 180? These two add up to 180. These two add up to 180. And these two add up to 180. And that's what that's what characteristic number 4 is saying. Consecutive angles are supplementary. And then lastly, diagonals bisect each other. And so wow, that's a really good diagonal, isn't it? That's even better. Alright, there's one diagonal, and there's another one. Now, here's what we've learned, okay? They bisect each other. That means this segment here, I'll go ahead and put one mark through it. This segment here is congruent to this segment, and this segment here is congruent to this segment, okay? They bisect each other. So in other words, if I told you this length here was 5, then you know this length over here is 5. If I told you this whole length of this was 8, this whole length all the way across was 8, well then you would know that this half here would be 4 and this half here would be 4. So the diagonals bisect each other. So with that in mind, and again I told you today's going to be pretty boring, just a lot of notes, a lot of listening, and a lot of again, taking notes. Okay, so we're on page 343. I want us to take a look at number 15. All right, number 15. Now, we have a parallelogram. Looks something like that. That's not perfect, but it's good enough. And notice we have an 8 right here, and A, B, C, D. Now, we also have a 4 right here. They want us to find the length of BC. Well, here's BC right here. Obviously, if we have a parallelogram, which we do, the directions say we have a parallelogram. If this is 4, then BC is also 4. Then they want us to find the length of CD. Well, if this is 8 right here, which it is, then CD also has to be 8. Whenever you have a parallelogram, opposite sides are congruent. Let's take a look at number 16. Number 16. All right. We have a parallelogram that looks like this. And let's see, F, G, H, J. And we're given just one angle, and that's it, which I love that. That's good. Makes the problem harder. Okay, and they want us to find angles F and G. I'm just going to find all of them. Now, first of all, we just learned a second ago that opposite angles. Hold on one second. This microphone's not staying on here. we learned that opposite angles are congruent. So if J is 125, then we know G is also 125. We also learned that consecutive angles are supplementary. So those two angles add together are going to equal 180. So that means this angle here has to be 55, because 55 plus 125 is 180. And if that's 55, this angle down here is also 55. Okay? So these two angles here had to add up to 180. These two angles here had to add up to 180. These two angles here add up to 180. And these two angles there add up to 180. Okay? And of course, opposite angles are congruent. All right, that's number 16. Let's move on to number 17. Number 17, we have a parallelogram that looks like this. And then we have some diagonals. And let's see what we're given here for number 17. Okay, this is an 8 right here. And they want us to find PQ. This is P. And this point here is Q. So think about it, Tara, if from here to here is 8, we know in a parallelogram the diagonals bisect each other, then we know that PQ also has to be 8. So there's one of the answers we're looking for, PQ equals 8. Now, they also want us to find PM. Now that would be the whole length all the way across. Now it's not that hard. I mean, we know this is 8, we know this is 8, so PM has to be 16, the length all the way across. Okay? All right, let's continue on. Now, well, let's review actually. So far on the test, I expect you to know the 4 ways that we've learned to prove that triangles are congruent and be able to use those. I expect you to know the 5 characteristics of a parallelogram. Opposite sides are congruent, opposite angles are congruent, opposite sides are parallel, consecutive angles are supplementary, and diagonals bisect each other, okay? And now we're going to look at a couple more topics still yet, okay? So here we go. So if you'll grab a sheet of paper, please, and I want you to write down some more information. Okay, I'm going to pause. 5 ways to prove a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, or a quad is a parallelogram. Now up here, I said, hey, you have a parallelogram. Here's the 5 characteristics. Now I'm saying, how can you prove that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram? Well, there's 5 ways. Now, by the way, I'm not going to ask you to list these out on the test. Okay? I'm not going to ask you to list out the 5 characteristics or the 5 ways to prove that a quad is a parallelogram, but you still need to be familiar with these or you won't be able to solve the problems. Both sets of opposite sides have to be congruent in order to have a parallelogram. Both sets of opposite, and actually I mistyped here. Sorry about that. There should be angles, so please fix that. I apologize. So both sets of opposite sides are congruent. Both sets of opposite angles are congruent. Both sets of opposite sides are parallel. An angle in both, keyword there, both of its consecutive angles are supplementary, and diagonals bisect each other. Any of those 5 ways are good enough to prove that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. So, would you please turn over one page to page 344 and take a look at number 18. Page 344, please take a look at number 18. Now what you're going to see is a shape, and you can't go by a shape as to whether or not it's a parallelogram, so don't try to do that. You have to use facts, okay? Now notice we're not going to use any of the sides because they don't give us any information about the sides, but they do give us information about angles. Now, both, let's see here. Reason number 4, let me stop and say this first of all, Tara. I mean, if you'll look at number 2, both sets of opposite angles are congruent. And you can see right away it fails right there. 125 and 5. They have to be congruent. But there's another way this fails too. I really want you to watch this. Please don't miss this. Look at number 4, Tara, and please listen to me carefully. An angle and both of its consecutive angles are supplementary. So here's an angle right in the middle. I'm picking this one because it's right in the middle of these other 2 angles. Now, 55 degrees has 2 consecutive angles. This angle is a consecutive angle. It's right beside it. And this angle is a consecutive angle over here, 105. It's right beside it. both sets have to add up to 180. Notice that both. Well, if you add these two together, guess what you get? 180, and that's fine. But when you add these two together, you get 160. And so right away we know we do not have a parallelogram. Look at number 4 again. An angle and both of its consecutive angles are supplementary. Okay? Something else I might do to you on the test is I might give you this right here. I might just give you 2 angles and say, is this a parallelogram? You do not know. You cannot say yes. Well, these 2 angles, Mr. Earhart, are supplementary. Yeah, they are. But an angle and both of its consecutive angles have to be supplementary. So you'd have to know this angle here also, or this angle up here, and make sure they add up to 180, okay? So number 18, the answer is no, it's not a parallelogram. Now look at number 19. Number 19 is interesting here, okay? See if I can get rid of this parallelogram real quick here. All right. Now number 19 looks like this, a square. And you might say, oh, we have a square, so we don't have a parallelogram. Well, hold on now. All of these sides are congruent there. Please look at way number 2 to prove that we have a parallelogram. Number 1, excuse me. Both sets of opposite sides are congruent. Now, if all 4 sides are congruent, that's okay. I don't mind that. But I have a question for you. Is this side here congruent to this side here? They both have 1 mark. The answer is yes. Is this side here congruent to this side here? Well, they both have 1 mark, so the answer is yes. So I have a quadrilateral in which, look at number 1, both sets of opposite sides are congruent. So, yes, I definitely have a parallelogram. So yes, and the reason would be both sets of opposite sides are congruent. Now look at number 20. Number 20 is a little different. Number 20 is dealing with diagonals, okay? So let's take a look at this real quick here. All right. Now, number 20, and I don't care if these diagonals are super sharp or not, that's not a big deal to me. Notice we have this length here labeled a 5, and this length here is labeled a 5. This length here is labeled a 4. And this length here, excuse me for yawning, it is late at night, I apologize. Now, take a look at number 5, Tara. Diagonals bisect each other. Look, here's the diagonals. And diagonals truly bisect each other when this length here is the same as this length here. And we have that. Check, check. 4 equals 4, okay? And then look at the other diagonal. We have a length of 5 and a length of 5. So also, check, check. So do these 2 diagonals bisect each other? Yes, they do. And whenever diagonals bisect each other, you can state that you definitely have a parallelogram, and we have a parallelogram. Okay? So there we go. And that's the 5 ways to prove that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. Please know those, Tara. Be familiar with those. We're going to look at a couple more things. We're just about done, so I'm not sure how much the period this has taken, how much you've had to pause the video. And if Mr. Harmon's in the room and it's only taken half the class period, again, I would like to defend myself usually when I'm there in the classroom. I'm just going to teach the whole hour. And then the very, very last day of school, if we don't have a lot to do, maybe just 10 minutes, then okay. But it's hard to know not being there. Let's take a look at a couple more things, please. Tara, take a look at number 21 at the bottom of the same page there. So page number 344, number 21. I don't want to insult your intelligence, and that's why I'm not going to go over characteristics of a square. I mean, we should know by now a square is a rectangle with all 4 sides congruent. We have an 8 here, we have an x here in number 21, and y minus 5. Now, Tara, it's not that hard. I mean, they want you to solve for x and y, and they're telling you you have a square. Well, if you have a square, then all 4 sides are going to be the same. So x here has to equal 8. Now here, what would y have to be? Well, would it not have to be 13? Think about it, Tara. What's 13 minus 5? If y was 13, 13 minus 5 is 8. So y has to be 13. Another way to look at that is this entire side y minus 5. This entire side right here has to equal what? 8. And now add 5 to both sides, and y equals 13. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over characteristics of squares. I do feel like that would be an insult to your intelligence. We know this pretty well. Now there is something I want you to write down about rectangles you need to know. Then we're going to finish up with rhombi, and we're finished, okay? Would you please take some good notes on this? Please watch this carefully, Tara. Whenever you have a rectangle, the diagonals are not only bisecting each other, which they are. You need to write this down. In a rectangle, the diagonals definitely bisect each other, but they're also congruent. So they bisect each other and they're congruent. In other words, if the length of this whole diagonal is 12, then the length of this whole diagonal right here is 12 also, okay? And they do bisect each other. So with that in mind, would you please take a look at number 22? They're telling us that x minus 1 is the length of this segment here, and y plus 4 is the length of this segment here. And then up here we have a 5. Now, Tara, please think about this for a second. If the diagonals bisect each other and also the diagonals are congruent, then that means from here to here is 5. But guess what else? That means from here to here is also 5. And that also means from here to here, the length is 5. And that means from here to here, this length is also 5. So y plus 4 has to equal 5. Subtract 4 from both sides and y equals 1. And that makes sense. Put a 1 right here for y. 1 plus 4 is 5. Now x minus 1 has to equal 5. Add 1 to both sides and x equals 6. And that makes sense. Tara, if you put a 6 right here, 6 minus 1 is 5. So I know that we know a lot about rectangles. I know you've been studying rectangles since you've been in probably preschool and elementary. But one thing you might have forgotten, the diagonals of a rectangle bisect each other, and they're also congruent, okay? And both of those things are very important. Let's finish up here with rhombi, and you'll see one there at the bottom of page 344, number 23, okay? So let me quickly draw this, if I'm able to. Wow, that's interesting. All right, and let's see here. Now, I think it's important that you write down some things about a rhombus you might have forgotten, and you're responsible for all these. I won't ask you to write them out on the test, but you need to know these, okay? All four sides of a rhombus are congruent. All four sides are congruent. The diagonals definitely bisect each other. And they are perpendicular. In other words, if I were to draw the diagonals like this and like this, they form a right angle right there. The diagonals are perpendicular. Okay? So with that in mind, hopefully you've listened well, and I hope the video has been decently long enough. If not, I mean, I'll just have to learn to do a better job with this. But we've covered a good amount of information, Tara. We're going to review at the end real quick. But now look, they give you in the directions this is a rhombus, okay? And we know if it's a rhombus, all four sides are congruent. So this side is 10, this side is 10, this side is 10, and this side is 10. So right away we can see y equals 10. And I can see right away that x equals 6, right? Because 6 plus 4 is 10, so x has to equal 6. All right, let's review real quick what I want you to know for the exam. I want you to know that we learned 4 ways to prove that triangles are congruent, and to be able to apply those to triangles on the test, okay? We learned 5 characteristics of parallelograms. Opposite sides are congruent, opposite angles are congruent, opposite sides are parallel, consecutive angles are supplementary, diagonals bisect each other. And you need to be able to apply those to problems like we did today for a little bit, okay? And then we also learned 5 ways to prove that that quadrilaterals are parallelograms, okay? Both sets of opposite sides are congruent, emphasis on both. Both sets of opposite angles are congruent, emphasis on both. Both sets of opposite sides are parallel, emphasis on both. An angle and both of its consecutive angles are supplementary, and the diagonals bisect each other. Then we talked about squares. They're pretty easy, not a whole lot there. But with rectangles, don't forget, with rectangles, diagonals bisect each other, and they're congruent. That's so important. The diagonals of a rectangle bisect, and they're congruent. And then don't forget about a rhombus. All 4 sides are congruent. And the diagonals definitely bisect each other, no doubt about that, but they're also perpendicular to each other. They're perpendicular, okay? That's it for review day number 1. Only 3 more to go, so hang in there, keep working hard. I will talk to you on Friday.